All right, everybody. So I am going to go ahead and fill in the blank. That is, give you the information that I did not include in the most recent presentation. I apologize for that. Think I might sometimes be trying to do too many things at once. It's amazing how busier you get when you stay at home to do work. These are the places in the outline that did not get answers yesterday. We're going to start with translating goals into objectives. So when we're working with clients, we know that they have the broad overarching goals. I said that those are usually general statements. The question ultimately is in our way of, how do we in our own way help clients translate goals into objectives? Our book has some suggestions. Okay, Siporin, this is a 1975 publication, talks about creating effective objectives from goals. And here are the elements. Number one, all objectives should be, as I mentioned yesterday, steps toward goals. We're talking about rungs on a ladder. You know you are, in fact, creating an effective objective when you can say to yourself, this logically fits into the accomplishment of the goal. Okay, so one question you can ask yourself when you're writing objectives is, how does this fit in with the accomplishment of the goal? How does this promote achievement of the goal? Explicit and operational. Okay, explicit. We don't have to ask too many questions about what is being done here or being asked to do here. These, again, unlike goals, are giving you direction. They're giving you steps to take. They're giving you clear behaviors or you would say tasks or activities to complete in service to the goal. Realistic and obtainable. Getting a winning lottery ticket is not the most realistic objective here. Obtainable. These should be things that, again, when we take into account the bigger picture that we derive from the assessment, what the client is able to do, what the capacities are, okay, and what is in fact attainable to the client. Okay, those, as much as they can be written in as objectives, are desirable. Discrete and time limited. Again, this looks an awful lot like just like a casual conversation and less of a professional relationship. Unless there is some kind of limits to how things are supposed to look, it could go on indefinitely. And really, I found that that's not a helpful way to go. I mentioned earlier in the class, earlier in the semester, that when I came to the agency I was working for at the time, there had been people who had been there 10, 12 years. And I would say that is not time limited. That is the opposite of time limited. The folks who are engaged in the service are not practicing discrete tasks or activities. It's kind of more open-ended in general, and really it doesn't seem like it's helping them much. In fact, it's, in my opinion, creating a relationship of dependency. Observable and measurable. We've heard measurable quite a number of times. Observable, things you can typically see, things you can point to as being done or not done, things on a scale of 0 to 10, things that you can say are present or are in process. Okay, so again, things that you can quantifiably, tangibly point to and say they are either in the process of being done or haven't been started or require something before. But in any case, they should be able to be observable and measurable and accepted by both worker and client. Now, these need to be generated by the client, but accepted by both. If a client's going to pursue something illegal, I'm not sure that the worker should sign on to this because, in fact, I'm going to say this worker shouldn't sign on to it because if you want to talk about risks, I think it would be possibly amplifying or increasing the risk of greater level of problems for the client. So again, it needs to be generated by client, and it needs to be collaborative, but I think they also have to be accepted by both. Constructing action plans. So once you have the goals and the objectives in support of the goal in place and ready to go, we create what we call an action plan. Okay, and action plans can go also by the name of case plans, depending on where you work. And these are kind of the you might call it the contract. We used that language yesterday. This is the contract between the client and the worker. They are often signed by the client and or the client's representative if there's a conservator involved, or a parent if the client is a child, or if you're working with multi-person systems, everyone involved should be signing on to whatever the action plan is. It's usually the written memoriam of whatever the goals and objectives are for that client. Okay, constructing action plans, we should have clarity with regard to the outcome of the goals. Okay, and that should be written in sentences and with language that should be clear to both you and the client. Okay. But that's part of what the action plan does. Okay, they should reflect client situation and capabilities from assessments. So again, we're not trying to shy away from the fact that there's a situation going on here. That would be kind of silly to ignore. But at the same time, we're not just going to stay there either, like we would with a diagnosis and say, well, here's your diagnosis, here's your label, and that's kind of what we're working with, and that only. No, I think that an action plan should contain an understanding that there is a situation, but there are also capabilities that are there to meet whatever the needs are. And I think they should really be played up by the worker for the client. Face forward. Remember how we've been talking about looking toward the future, and describe what the client's life will be like with the solution. Again, very much strength-based, solution-focused. We ask questions like, well, the miracle question. What would be the first thing you would notice when your life looks like this vision you have for yourself? Again, very face forward is the language of the book used. I even put it in quotation marks there because I liked it. Face forward. Okay. Build on positive momentum. I actually love the fact that the book brought this up too. A lot of times when we're working with clients, there may be things that are in the process of getting better, even as they're starting with their work with us. One really good question that you might ask clients in between visits is, so what's been improving even since the last time we saw each other? You could even, I always throw people off with that question. But I think that it should be something in our kind of purview. I think we should be mindful of this. So build on positive momentum is something that the action plan can do. It can also recognize that things have already been going right and we should continue them. That way you can feel like you've already got something checked off. Let's face it, sometimes we feel a lot better when we have a couple of things checked off our to-do list rather than when we're just looking at all the items on our to-do list and feeling overwhelmed. Sorting out possibilities. I think that after the assessment, you get a lot more information, and then you're kind of trying to cabin all of this information into workable goals and objectives, but then also sorting out what's possible in order to meet whatever the needs are. There's oftentimes more than one way to get a need met, and sorting out what possibilities seem to be the most feasible for this client, for the situation, is part of what an action plan does. Okay. Create discrete units. This goes an awful lot like, this goes very much with when we're talking about the objectives being concrete and observable. Discrete units, things that are manageable, things that can be understood and processed easily. The other thing is helping clients get to another way to put this. I'm stumbling over my words right now, but what I'm trying to get to is sometimes helping clients get past one small hurdle gives them momentum to pursue others. And the small hurdle should be a discrete unit, something that can be manageable and can be achieved fairly quickly. And again, I think all these things work together because even when you start doing the smaller hurdles, you start to build positive momentum to carry forth. So again, creating discrete units is also part and parcel with constructing the action plan. Grouping by similarities. We heard in the lecture last week, that was chapter 10, talking about how a lot of times backing up from a picture and looking at the forest rather than the trees, we can see the commonalities and we can start to see how specific themes in one's life are connected to groups of problems. For example, clients desire to get out and do more, but not really knowing how, can be a common denominator for a lot of things. Because clearly, if the client was able to overcome that hurdle and get out and start doing more, it's going to take care of a lot of other things. So again, being able to step back as the worker and say, gosh, a number of these issues that are being identified have this kind of common denominator. That can be really helpful, and it can promote a lot of new insight for the client. And I think that was the end of that one. So let's see what I can do with this. Let's see if I can get this thing uploaded to YouTube today and move forward with that. All right, thanks.